Let's go back to the Bridget Mbandla Justice College in Pretoria. Senzo Mchunu's alleged associate Brown Mogotsi testifying today before the Madlanga Commission. Mogotsi claims that he's a crime intelligence agent who pretended to have close proximity to Mchunu as a means to get close to the alleged Big Five cartel boss, Vusumuzi Cat Matlala. He says it was part of a covert operation. He's also detailed how, in his version, the National Police Commissioner Fannie Masemola and the former Police Minister Bheki Cele have allegedly received millions of rand from Matlala. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda and Ngcobo joins us live with more details on all of this. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. We've heard many incredible stories here, but certainly a lot of claims being made by Brown Mogotsi today.
A lot of claims, not small, very big claims being made by Brown Mogotsi. Among them that King Misuzulukazwelithini and the KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi are CIA agents, he says. He told stories about a mine in Richards Bay and how Mkhwanazi then was using the political killings task team to protect the interests of the West, who would have been interested in ensuring that their interests are protected because of the ICJ case that the South African government has taken against Israel. But he also then goes on to talk about how Bheki Cele's claim, which he made at the ad hoc committee in Parliament, that he only met Vusumuzi Cat Matlala late last year, is simply not true. In fact, he talks about the fact that Bheki Cele would have fully been aware of who Vusumuzi Cat Matlala was, because in 2018 there was a crime intelligence briefing, a 6-page briefing that was given at the time Cele was still the police minister in reference to a John Wick. And John Wick, he says, is Vusumuzi Cat Matlala. Now, Stephen, it's important to note that Mogotsi says he is a contact agent and his handler, he has two. There's one handler called Mabizela and the second co-handler he is unable to mention for their safety. He says the task that he was given was to infiltrate Vusumuzi Cat Matlala's network to be able to get to the bottom of who would have been involved in awarding him that now controversial SAPS tender. But I want you to listen into what he had to say about Cele receiving that briefing and Vusumuzi Cat Matlala being referred to as John Wick.
There is something, I believe the Commission will have access to that. The Commission should perhaps direct attention to the crime intelligence in their archives. There is something called Boko Haram. It was a presentation, intelligence presentation, which was presented to the former minister Bheki Cele. I'm going to give a bit description about that presentation. Commissioners, it was 6 pages. The Boko Haram, it talks to a man who was known as John Wick. This John Wick appears on the presentation of the intelligence presentation which was presented to Minister Bheki Cele. It has a picture of John Wick, his ID number, it has his previous convictions, pending cases and everything, all the matters that were withdrawn against him. It was in 2018 October, Commissioner. Commissioner, John Wick is Vusumuzi Cat Matlala. Even the picture is showing that. Now, former Minister Bheki Cele says now he only met him in December 2024. Now, one will ask again. He even said he didn't know him. He invited him to his house, and it was a freebie. He had to take it. And I should also share, it's within those messages between me and Cat Matlala. The story that Minister Bheki Cele was in Cat's house, it is true. We actually had to arrest Minister Cele at that time. He was affected by this POCA Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act.
So Mogotsi claims that part of his modus operandi insofar as being able to infiltrate Vusumuzi Cat Matlala's network and getting closer to Vusumuzi Cat Matlala was for him to claim that he has close proximity to Minister of Police who is now on a leave of absence, Senzo Mchunu. He says that he pretended that he would get the audience of Mchunu, Matlala would get the audience of Mchunu at the ANC's annual January 8th statement. He says, however, Mogotsi that is, that his handlers told him to ensure that John Wick, who's Vusumuzi Cat Matlala, does not get anywhere near the Minister of Police. Now, he then talks about a meeting that he had on the 7th of December 2024. And you'll recall, Stephen, that this would have been exactly a day after Vusumuzi Cat Matlala was actually apprehended. This, he says, was a meeting he had with Matlala where he then detailed his frustrations regarding this SAPS tender and the alleged greediness of National Police Commissioner Fannie Masemola and Bheki Cele, who were meant to be assisting him with his challenges regarding this tender.
Yeah, the meeting was very, very important because, commissioners, it is Matlala who told me that these people are very ungrateful. He further spoke about General Bheki Cele and General Masemola, saying that, these people expect me, like Masemola, he expects 25 million rand from me, and I've already given him 5 million rand. He also spoke about Bheki Cele, that he has given him 2 million rand, and he wanted 10 million, which means the 8 million rand was outstanding. One of the important things he said was that General Masemola and Cele, they are having a plan, a comeback strategy for General Bheki Cele to come back, and they really, really want to get rid of General Sibiya.
Mogotsi then goes on to say that he clearly did gain the trust of Cat Matlala at some stage, and that when Mkhwanazi now held that 6th of July briefing, he received calls from Matlala regarding a time to remind Mogotsi of a time where he had said he had gone to Durban to meet with someone who would solve his problems, the problems being around this SAPS tender. Now, what Mogotsi says is Matlala didn't know at the time that he had actually followed Matlala on this trip to Durban and had actually used an Uber driver as a source to be able to track and trail Matlala's movements from the time he landed at King Shaka International Airport and had gone to this particular home in Umhlanga. They first stopped off at the hotel, then went to this particular home in Umhlanga, only to find out, according to Mogotsi, that it was the home of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, whom Matlala actually met with. And then this was confirmed by Matlala himself after the 6th of July briefing by Mkhwanazi, where Matlala expressed his disappointment that Mkhwanazi, after having given him money, was now doing this to him.
During the 6th of July, during the General Mkhwanazi's press conference, General Mkhwanazi did mention Cat Matlala Brown Mogotsi during his press statement. And it came out to everyone that on that day, Cat Matlala was found with a cell phone in prison. And indeed, and he called me, very furious. He said, "Brown, can I tell you something? There was a time I told you that I went to look for someone who can solve my problem." And he said, and I said, "Yes, I remember." Because when I followed him, I didn't tell him that I was following him. And it became that I did not know who he met. They were driving the car, and it was something that was packed. And he said, "I went to see General Mkhwanazi's house. And I also gave him something." He was talking about money. I gave him, I also gave him, but he was speaking this language. And he gave this guy, and now he's talking like this about us. I think, and then I never said to Kate, "I followed you." I did not know. Honestly speaking, I didn't see who that person was. But how he narrated everything about the day he was going to meet someone who was going to solve his problems. I remember.
So in his quest to try and investigate this information that Mogotsi says he'd gotten from a source about Mkhwanazi being a CIA agent, Mogotsi then tells the story of how he traveled to Nairobi in September this year, between the 10th and the 12th of September this year, to meet with another contact who identified themselves as George, who allegedly claimed that they knew of all the CIA operatives within the SADC region, and this George person told him that they are aware that Mkhwanazi is one of their own. He then says, Mogotsi, that he called the former Minister of Police, the now late ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa, to ask him why he had dismissed Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi when he was the acting National Police Commissioner in 2011. Mogotsi claims that Mthethwa told him that he had similar suspicions about Mkhwanazi being a CIA agent. Listen to this.
Yes, after Al Jazeera General Press briefing on July, and moreover the reference made therein to me, I decided to continue investigating General Mkhwanazi and obtain as much information as I could. To give context to the arguments and statements that he had made during the press statement, my handler at all relevant times knew of my continued investigation and it carried his approval. And paragraph 50, sometime thereafter, towards the end of August, I contacted the late former Minister of Police, Nathi Mthethwa. I wanted to understand why Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was removed as acting National Commissioner of Police in 2012. I spoke to Mthethwa regarding my concerns that General Mkhwanazi was CIA operative, according to information I received from my source. Mthethwa said he shared my suspicion. In order to confirm this, he said I needed to travel to Kenya to meet with a contact who was aware of CIA operations in South Africa.
And so in painting this picture, Mogotsi, as I've said, he traveled to Kenya between the 10th and the 12th of September. And you'll know, Stephen, that it was on the 29th of September that the news of the late ambassador's passing came in. And Mogotsi saying he describes this as a suspicious circumstances as to the passing of Mthethwa, whom he claims had said he was willing to come before this commission of inquiry to testify, including on this suspicion that he might have had about Mkhwanazi being an operative. So when we come back from the lunch break, the chief evidence leader is expected to pick up on that now contentious disbandment letter of the 31st of December 2024, where Minister Mchunu was disbanding the political killings task team.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much indeed. Our senior political reporter on station for you at the Madlanga Commission. So much evidence coming through there, so many claims being made. And of course, at this point, all of this evidence is untested. We'll wait to see what the Commission makes of it.